In August 1945, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were destroyed by 2 atomic bombs. The explosion was caused by a chain reaction of uranium and plutonium. The uranium used for the production of these atomic and hydrogen bombs was mined from the land belonging to American Indians. This land includes 162,000 square acres in the southwestern part of the United States. It contains deep ravines, including parts of the Grand Canyon, as well as huge rock pillars and vast stretches of arid semi-desert. The area has a very low rainfall, barely 10 inches annually. Under these harsh conditions, the Navajo and Hopi Indians lead traditional lives and regard this area as their homeland. Their tradition entails limitless respect for the Great Spirit, Father Sky, and Mother Earth, as well as consideration for every living being. They deeply value harmony and balance with nature and pray by means of song and dance. They are adverse to causing any kind of damage to their land and take only the bare minimum to sustain their livelihood. Their economic base is farming corn, raising sheep, and weaving. The Hopi and Navajo speak different languages, yet have coexisted throughout their long history. They have shared the same land and blessings bestowed by the Great Spirit upon them both. However, despite their love of peace, these American Indians have seen their homeland so devastated over recent years that they fear the destruction of their religion and even their own lives. When keenly sought after raw materials, such as coal, crude oil, and uranium were found in this area, a conflict erupted between the United States government and multinational corporations on one side against the peaceful Hopi and Navajo on the other in this colonial war of the 1980s. Plains of Utah, Arizona, New Mexico, and Colorado, known as the Four Corners area, now bear the scars of 5 of the world's largest strip mines. Strip mining is a crude technique in which vast areas of land are laid open to extract coal. In these same states, 4 thermal power stations were set up to supply electricity to West Coast cities. 38 uranium mines were dug, and 6 processing plants were also constructed. 50% of the total fossil fuel used in the United States is mined from this land, which has been officially proclaimed as eminent domain of the United States government and a national sacrifice area. Big Mountain is located in the center of this area, which is sacred to both the Hopi and Navajo. Big Mountain is one of the most traditional areas where Navajos are living. They live in harmony with nature. The government has been trying to resettle the Navajo and Hopi so that they can implement the white man's claim to the coal and uranium there. Shea, one of the Big Mountain leaders, opposes the compulsory resettlement. The government has never told us the real reasons for the resettlement. However, it is obvious that they intend to mine the energy resources here. But the land is like part of our own body. It is our mother. The energy resources here belong to the earth, They are Mother Earth's organs. It is necessary for the earth to keep its organs healthy. Some human beings are in need of them, but just for the sake of profit. The government and private companies are trying to drive us away from here and cut open our mother's body. In 1974, the United States Congress passed a bill for forced relocation. In 1979, Key Shea and the other Indians living at Big Mountain submitted a Declaration of Independence to the United States government, stating that the United States had no right to trespass. They protested to former President Jimmy Carter. We are forced to break the law to save our own lives and to protect Mother Earth from destruction. You are making us break the law to protect our land. Dennis Banks is a leader of the American Indian movement, opposed to the discrimination, persecution, and the exploitation of Indian land.
Navajos from their, and the Hopis from their ancestral lands to other areas under the supervision of the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the United States government is very short, very simple. It can only be compared to Jews being relocated by Hitler. That's the only parallel that I can see. That's the only analogy to relocation of the Native Americans in this country. But it is nothing new to us. Cherokees, Creeks, Chickasaws, Choctaws, Seminoles, all being relocated during the last century in 1832 by the President of the United States, Andrew Jackson. As in the moment that they find more wealth to the land, they relocate Indian people. And so the same with the Jewish people under Hitler's Germany. They had to be removed. They had to be relocated to concentration camps, extermination camps. It is cultural genocide. Genocide at its height here in the 20th century.
When Navajos determined to stay, they don't want to move. They don't want to be relocated. They want to stay right there. If the government come in with army or any federal troop come in, they'd rather just die there, fighting for their land and rights. They don't want to move because this land belongs to all of the native people. It's our homeland, it's the only country we have, and the United States government has no right, no power, no authority to take this land away from the native people. But he's doing it right now. I don't think if any
Thomas Ban Yaha is a messenger chosen by the Hopi elders to inform the world about the Hopi Prophecy.
Military power, they could fight, all right, but
This Hopi village, Haute Villa, is located on a 6,000-foot mesa. The Hopis are a sovereign, independent nation, established in accordance with the law of the Great Spirit. The Hopi have the reputation of being one of the most mystic of American Indians. After thousands of years of life in peace, the Hopi are beginning to witness the plunder and destruction of their Mother Earth as foretold in the prophecy passed down to them from the Great Spirit. According to the Hopi prophecy, the ancestors of the modern Hopi came up from beneath the ground, and the Great Spirit taught them how to live in harmony with all creatures. They were given a stone tablet etched with a diagram of the prophecy so that the Hopi would continue to follow the teachings of the Great Spirit.
As I mentioned in 1948, when the elders met, religious leaders, they mentioned that at the time of emergence from another world to this new planet, new Earth, they met the Great Spirit, Masawa, they called him in Hopi language. And he gave all instructions. And he also told him that those that have received sacred stone tablets were chosen as to be Hopis. They were directed to this area, and they were to take care of this land. And they have chosen this area because Great Spirit told them this is the backbone of this country, meaning there's more mineral resources here, which must be held by spiritual leaders until later, when human beings or people who are inventing things would use it in a proper way. And they put sacred shrines on top of these four directions, mountains. So their ancient shrines are there. And from this spiritual center, they direct their prayer ceremonies, prayer feathers, and everything for the balancing of nature and everything in this world. It's directed from here to the edges of land and around the world. So this land will continue to operate in a pattern that was laid by the Great Spirit, that we must not disturb them. So that's why they picked this place to take care of it. We've looked at this as a very sacred area.
The kiva is a ritual underground sanctuary symbolizing the womb of Mother Earth. The ceremonies and prayers of the Hopi are held inside the kiva.
Pampi pai anjapi suyan yan pek enang ita nabuti busa ni ke Anjapi itahi sahapi ya sangwe ang ye fakam yeska kyang pu itane akhapina ikinaya itam hapi hintakat ausat talyong naya nikyang.
This is the place where the Hopi elders passed down the prophecy to the next generation. According to the prophecy, the Great Spirit had warned the Hopi that resources were dormant there, that these resources were not to be mined until humans learned to use them for peaceful ends, that they must not be used for war or destructive purposes. The ancestors then recorded the prophecy on a rock in a valley as a warning for future generations. There are 2 horizontal lines said to indicate paths and 3 circles. Thomas Ben Yaha tells of their significance in the Hopi prophecy.
On the lower road, which the Great Spirit made for this land called America today, and a white brother came, and he has another road. They refer to that upper road, which is more a materialistic path. It's man-made ideas, man-made inventions, and disturbings of nature with those things. It might be that it might destroy this land again. So the Hopi and Native people were to follow this lower road through prayer, meditations, and ceremonies, so that this land and the whole world would be in balance. Wind will not be destructive, earthquake will not be too severe, rain would not be destructive, lightning would not be destructive. All this we're told. So on this path, there's 2 circles. The circle here was given to all of us before we separated. A white brother went over to someplace. There's no end to that circle, and that has a lot of sacred meaning in a religious society. So a white brother took that. Instructions and warnings were given him also. But when he came back, he may have changed that. So he brought in another symbol called cross. When he does that, we know that he's going to start changing the law of the Great Spirit and law of nature and do things in his own way. So we must be very careful signing things to let big companies come into this area, start digging coal, uranium, oil, and gas out of it. The tribal council came about because the government wants somebody to sign big development out here because they have money to provide to Hopi and Navajo to use, but somebody have to sign it. There was no tribal council. The leaders don't want that. So they set up this tribal council and put pressure on them and told them that now you have a chance to approve this because you'll have more money coming, more income, better way of livelihood, and more conveniences and all that. But they don't tell them what's going to happen, and like strip mining coal. They don't add the dangers in uranium mining. They don't understand.
Red Rock Village on the Navajo land was the first site of uranium mining within the United States. The U.S. government used uranium taken from Indian land to construct atom bombs to destroy Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Previous imported uranium stocks had been consumed during the Manhattan Project for the world's first nuclear test. What did the Hopi Prophecy warn about the uranium mining? These scars are testimony to the damages of mining. The Hopi had prophesied many things in connection with the dropping of the bombs upon Japan. 3 years later, in 1948, the elders of the Hopi held an emergency meeting. Thomas Ben Yaha attended this meeting.
Somebody may be able to invent what they call gold full of ashes. That if they ever invent that and throw it on the ground someplace, it'll burn everything to ashes. Just like we found out it happened in 2 cities in Japan, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Those 2 events have brought these leaders together in 1948. So they talk about all the things that's known to the Hopi up to that point.
We know that that's the fulfillment of a Hopi prophecy. So that's why in 1948, the elders got together, and for the first time they told this to the world, to let them know that we are in a dangerous period now, that we should let the world know that if we go on further like that, mankind can be totally destroyed again. So that's why they told us to carry this message wherever we go.
That is exactly what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Everything burned up, people, property, and many living things will die from heat. And then so many sickness comes out of it for many years that many of our medicine will not cure them. And there'll be perhaps the radiation was spread out so far. And these are some things they describe. It's so amazing that they knew about this in Hopi language. And that's what happened in these 2 places, the circle. Someplace someone's going to invent that gold full of ashes. So we interpret these 2 circles, First World War, Second World War, in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
We have spent more than $2 billion on the greatest scientific gamble in history, and we have won. It is an awful responsibility which has come to us. We thank God that it has come to us instead of to our enemies, and we pray that he may guide us to use it in his ways and for his purposes.
Atomic explosions killed 350,000 people of Hiroshima and 280,000 people of Nagasaki. Many are still dying as a result of radiation exposure, but their exact number is difficult to estimate. The hereditary effects of radiation exposure are not yet established. We had been taking care of her all this time, hoping that she might be able to speak and walk by herself. But as things turned out, she was never even able to attend school. Yuriko Hataneka was born with radiation-induced brain damage. She had been exposed to radiation while still in her mother's womb. Yoshie, her mother, died of cancer 6 years ago. Yuriko's father, who runs a barber shop, now looks after her. 39-year-old Yuriko walks with a limp. Her intelligence is no more than that of a 2-year-old child. She still needs someone to help her dress and to take her to the bathroom.
but they force their way in, and they make that out of this atom bomb against against the consent of the elders, religious leaders. They don't want this to be taken out, but they violate it by coming in without permission and develop this and throw it in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Learning about the tragedy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki a few years later, Alice Benally at Big Mountain recalled,
"It was the idea of people in Washington, D.C. to bring harm to people all over the world. Indian people have never thought of harming others. We found out about A-bomb a few years later and also found that they came from our land. We didn't know anything about A-bomb, which killed hundreds and thousands of people at once."
However, Japanese are not the only radiation victims. Navajos employed in uranium mining and processing were also exposed to radiation and suffered similar effects.
The United States knows that if the fearful trend of atomic military buildup can be reversed, this greatest of destructive forces can be developed into a great boon for the benefit of all mankind.
In the 1950s, the uranium mining boom had already begun in Navajo land. Uranium mining was going full scale into the Colorado Plateau, which is located across the states of Colorado and Arizona. Unfortunately, the Navajo were not informed of the effects of uranium radiation upon the human body. They had been suffering from high unemployment and had to take jobs with low wages. Mined uranium was purchased by National Atomic Energy Committee, and they consumed most of it while researching nuclear weapons and nuclear tests in Nevada. From 1951 to 1958, a total of 119 atmospheric nuclear tests were conducted in Nevada. One of the purposes was to determine the effects of the nuclear blast and fallout upon the human body. The test subjects were U.S. soldiers. The number of these atomic soldiers affected by radiation is estimated at 200 to 300,000. The partial nuclear test ban of 1963 reduced the number of such tests, ending the mining boom on Navajo land. Most businesses left suddenly, leaving behind buildings and equipment and tons of waste contaminated with uranium. Hundreds of workers had received severe radiation exposure.
And around that area, they have, towards west, they have open pit left there. And then they had a process plant near the east of Montgomery Village, not very far from there. And they left piles of that waste there. It's now felt that creating much disturbance to this land and life, and the people have become sick, and the cancer development and deformed babies are being developed there. And so this is what they told us that it may happen, so that we must never allow that to be happening.
Beggy Hashkayan's husband used to work in a uranium mine.
The company made him work without a mask, even in most dangerous places. He died of lung cancer from exposure to radon gas containing uranium. The company just left the factories and the uranium behind.
Julia Chris' husband worked as a miner for 13 years.
Once he had to flee to a cave to escape from a mining accident. He survived that accident, but later developed heart disease and began coughing up blood. X-rays showed a large hole in his lung still now.
Julia Chris negotiated with the company for compensation, but they have refused even to cover the medical costs. In the Cameron, Arizona area, 38 of the 150 Navajo who have worked as miners have died from lung cancer due to radiation exposure. A further 95 are now suffering from respiratory disease. One miner explains, "You couldn't really call it mining. We just went in a hole in the ground. The holes were filled with radioactivity. I felt as if I had atomic bombs in my lungs."
I'm asking the Atomic Energy Commission to speed up the licensing and construction of nuclear plants. By the end of this decade, we will have developed the potential to meet our own energy needs without depending on any foreign energy sources.
In order to supply and fuel the nuclear power plants and to increase the United States stockpile of nuclear arms, in the 1970s, the uranium rush had started again on Navajo land. Once again, the dangers to the Navajo employed in mining and processing were ignored. Wages were low and safety standards inadequate. The radon gas released by uranium ore is poisonous and carcinogenic. Its radioactivity is relatively low, but when inhaled, it starts breaking down the lung tissue, leading to cancer. It has been estimated by an association of mining workers that 80% of the miners will eventually die of cancer. The process of extracting uranium dioxide from the ore to produce yellow cake generates large quantities of radioactive waste. One ton of ore has to be processed to yield just 10 grams. The remaining wastes are discarded in the vicinity of the processing plants. This sludge contains radioactive iodine, strontium-90, and radium-226. It retains 85% of its radioactivity from the ore. About 26 million tons of radioactive waste tailings have been left in the Navajo land. It will be 280 million tons by 1990. The wind scatters the dry powder over a wide area, contaminating the grass eaten by livestock as fodder. The river that supplies the water to the Navajo people is also now contaminated. In July 1979 at Church Rock, New Mexico, a retaining levee at a large processing plant burst, releasing thousands of tons of radioactive water and sludge. The waste flowed into the Puerco River, contaminating it for 100 kilometers downstream. This was the worst radiation accident in the United States history, apart from the nuclear tests themselves. And the Rio Puerco is the only source of drinking water available to the Navajo and their animals in this area. Yet, the government's only response was to post warning signs along the riverbanks. The Navajo living nearby filed a suit in the state court against United Nuclear Corporation, which runs the plant. After a year of proceedings, the company paid a small compensation. Yet most residents still depend on the company for their livelihood. Eventually, they are economic hostages of the atomic industry.
Regulations are not violated. We think that you should look at ways that, if you want to, you can reduce your radiation exposure.
2% of the uranium produced by this processing plant is exported to Japan. Both government and private industry justify their actions as contributing to the economic growth and creating jobs for the unemployed Hopi and Navajo. The health dangers of radioactive waste to people living near the mines were discovered and publicized by a local public health center. Some residents had known of the danger, but many who didn't built houses and gardens from the uranium waste. The sludge, which is like cement, was used to make floors and walls. This house was built on a foundation of uranium ore. According to officials at the health clinic, long-term residents of such houses were prone to contract cancer, lung disease, and leukemia. Kiba Gay, a one-time uranium miner, died of lung cancer 1 year after this interview. He had been exposed to radioactivity, and his house was built of radioactive sludge. The company didn't say anything at all about the danger. Every day I went home covered with uranium dust and contaminated my wife and children. I ate food from hands covered with waste. I feel very sad to find out the truth and don't know what to do about it. In Grand Junction, Colorado, 270,000 tons of uranium ore and sludge have been used in the construction of roads, schools, and churches from 1950 to 1960. Buddy Friends is in charge of the detection and demolition of radioactive buildings.
Coming from this general area that indicates that there were tailings deposits used as either in the concrete or as a bedding material under the concrete. And this was a very common way in which the tailings were used here in this valley. The gamma fields varied considerably from twice background as it's indicating here to on the other side of the house we saw something that was 4 to 5 times background.
According to city health officials, residents of such buildings are exposed to radioactivity equivalent to 553 chest x-rays. Over the past 9 years, the government has spent $17 million to demolish these buildings. It is estimated that a total cleanup would cost $1.5 billion. The children's only playground and swimming holes are contaminated with uranium tailings. Expectant mothers face severe health risks due to excessive radiation.
Nearby, I live about 5 miles west from the Four Corners power plant, which is produced by coal. They have a coal mining, strip mining there. The power plant is run by the coal. And then west of us, about 7 miles, is one of the largest shiprock tailing left behind by Kerr-McGee. That's uranium tailings that's sitting approximately 23 million tons of it is still sitting there. And both pollution is by the Four Corners power plant. And there's a San Juan generating station right across from the Four Corners power plant as well. Most polluted that we're getting by is the Four Corners power plant itself and coal.
Uranium ore is transported from the mines to the processing plants daily. The destruction of Mother Earth continues. The U.S. government has declared this land as eminent domain and is planning to set up 100 mines and 10 processing plants by the year 2000. What have the Hopi prophesied about this?
When many problems now are coming to all our native people across the land, like prophecy said that white men would bring many of his ideas and ways and religion, and also use some of the inventions to try to force or influence many of young people to go that way, to live like a white man. And the fourth figure up on top represents one of our own people who joined those white people and tell the people, forget your culture and religion and go this way, material path, they will invent that zigzag line going up represents the advancement, scientific things going up and down. Probably toward last stages, going up and down. That means they're going to be power enough to go to the moon. Many people have already done that, and they even told us not to bring anything down that moon to Earth, because that will also disturb the balance of nature, universe.
Nature, they're going to interfere with balance of everything, so that it may be there'll be a severe earthquake, severe flooding, severe natural disaster like lightning, great wind become destructive more and more as we go up there. And they may even succeed in manufacturing or making people. Like today we see in test tubes, they said they're making people, babies, being manufactured almost like, that's what the Hopi knew that.
There'll be earthquake, more severe storm, and everything will hit us, because those that area that have promoting, developing those things, they're going to be hit by those things more and more. More earthquake, more tidal waves, more season changing, or maybe wind and rain going to be destructive. All this is merely warning us that we must stop these things. So if we begin to see more earthquake, eating more people, they say, we see changes of season more and more. There'll be severe winter, severe drought, or there may be great wind destructive, killing people, destroying property. And then there'll be great flooding by rain, and maybe mountains going to blow their tops, and maybe land be sinking for some reason. And then toward the last, maybe lightning going to start hitting us right and left, because we have not followed the law of Great Spirit. We have not fulfilled the mission that we were put to by the Great Spirit. Another circles on the top of the line. That may be Third World War that might break out. Or it may be that people, by this time, there's a line drawn there. Go back and... Today they said this is where we are today. We see many advancements scientifically going up. If we just use that power, atom bomb, nuclear power, coming out from mineral resource, make that, we're going to destroy ourselves with that someday.
That we better change, we better stop mankind, so that we won't bring on a third world event or third world war. Because if that happened, I don't know if any will be leaving here, because they're going to use all the hydrogen bomb which they stockpile. They're going to blow up everything.
Sooner or later, more destructive things are going to be developed. Nature may also act. Maybe tomorrow, big earthquake hit White House, everything will crash. Or maybe some other place. Maybe one of these nuclear power might blow up because wind or lightning might hit that, or maybe earthquake. These things are dangerous that we're coming towards.
I think we're going to have to take whatever action is necessary to increase domestic supplies of energy. That is the answer to our problem, instead of continuing foreign dependence and thinking that we can meet the problem just by conservation. By conservation means we'll all either have to be too hot in the summer or too cold in the winter.
So right there where the line comes down, people that realize it, people who begin to see the danger, the wrongness of it.
When men began to see that their life is going wrong direction, they will come back down here.
They will come back to the spiritual people who are still living here in this called America's native people. Spiritual leaders are still holding on to the instructions so that we will not destroy this whole world. If I follow the law of the Great Spirit, so maybe at that last circle, people will begin to do away with.
And then there are people will be going along here, and then we join together here, and then whoever comes out of this, we call Purification Day. It will clean up all the wrongdoing, stop all mistreatment of people, misusing of mineral resources, and whoever comes out will meet the Great Spirit again, because I'm the first and I'll be the last. A long life, good life, that the Great Spirit wants us to, so that this land will go on. And
sooner or later, the whole world, native people, of course, around the world, they call them minorities, but those minorities going to join someday, and the white man's going to be a minority. The minorities will be a majority, and the table will turn, and that's when the white man's going to have to answer for all the things they have done. They may have to be punished for many, many times more than what they have been doing to native people up to this point. This is one of the prophecies also. Well, the Hopi mentioned actually 2 worlds before this one, and this is the 3rd one. But this one, 3rd one, was to go on forever. If the people began to disturb this land and life like they're doing now, they just might destroy it. But if the people realize the dangers, wrongness of it, then they can put that aside and bring about self-purification. After this is done, then it'll be just like entering another 4th world. The world will be clean, beautiful, everything in balance. Animal and birds, plant life, revive, will become back home, and we will start a clean life again from there on. So that's the way they explain it.
All of the technology that goes to the development of nuclear warhead, nuclear machines, is wrong, and it must stop. People should turn their technology knowledge to preserving what we have on this earth, to preserve their culture, to preserve their heritage, to preserve human beings, to preserve human survival. Different groups of people. And I see the last 15 years a great step ahead, a great move forward, and I hope that by the end of the century we will see not only a national coalition on fighting the development of nuclear warheads in this country, the stranglehold that the multinational corporations have on not only the people here but in 3rd world countries, but a international coalition which would help bring an end to the oppression that Native Americans find themselves in. We certainly have our differences daily, hourly. We have differences in language, but the basic foundation is the same, and that's survival. Survival of our culture, survival of the heritage, survival of our people, and to halt the destruction of our people. And when we say our people, we not only include the human being part of life, but we have to act to preserve the land itself, to preserve what few buffalo there are in this country, to preserve what few trees that we have, the berries, flowers, the birds. All of these things are part of our life. So I think the Indian movement will continue to grow strong, and this strengthening will not only be national, but will reach across the seas as well.
Great Spirit, whose voice I hear in the winds, and whose breath gives life to all in the world, hear me. I am small and weak. I need your strength and wisdom. Let me walk in beauty, and make my eyes ever hold the red and purple sunset. Make my hands respect the things you have made, and my ears sharp to hear your voice. Make me wise, so that I may understand the things that you have taught my people. Let me learn the lessons you have hidden in every leaf and rock. I seek strength, not to be greater than my brother, but to understand my greatest enemy, myself. Make me always ready to come to you with clean hands and straight eyes, so when life fades as a fading sunset, my spirit may come to you without shame. At age 110, David Manyangya, the oldest traditional Hopi, gives us the message of the Great Spirit in this way. We knew that the white man would destroy by fire 2 places on Japan by dropping a gourd full of ashes. This meant the 2 atomic bombs. We were warned that this would happen. If these bombs were made using the materials beneath the soil of this land, the whole planet will be completely destroyed if human beings continue to use missiles and bombs made from these materials. There will be no one to win a third world war, only complete destruction. But one day, many people will start to see the danger, and so they will start taking things seriously. They will start to seek wisdom and will take lessons in how to survive in the world. We now stand at the final stage, as predicted by the Great Spirit. The place where the Hopi live is the most sacred place on earth. That is why we pray every day for peace and hope that people all over the world will join us in this earnest desire and prayer for peace. May the Hopi wishes be heard and fulfilled over the world. May the day come in which we can live together as brothers and sisters. May my love and respect reach all people of the world. It is so that such days can come again, that the Great Spirit gave them the name Hopi, which means the people of peace.